Alright guys, what's up and welcome back to the Fantasy Breakdown. We are here at you late with the Week 8 waiver wire, and let's go ahead and get right into it. Our first player this week is going to be Joe Flacco. Last week he was the fantasy quarterback 6, and since being traded to the Bengals, he is averaging 22.4 fantasy points. I think he could keep up this production, especially when going against the Jets and which in my opinion, their atrocious fantasy defense. We could definitely see the numbers go up and change around. So far on the season, Flacco is averaging 11.8 fantasy points a game. He has 70.6 fantasy points total, 7 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Definitely, I think we could see the touchdowns go up and the interceptions hopefully stay the same. Next on our list, we have Kyle Monangai. Hopefully I said that right. If not, please let me know down below. He had a career high 81 yards last week, and he did also score his first career touchdown. And in the last 2 games alone, he has had just 38 receiving yards. And I think we could start seeing him split more, eat more into DeAndre Swift's workload, and he could maybe soon take over as the true number 2 running back, maybe even the number 1 running back up there in Chicago. And they are going against a very weak Ravens defense, so he could also have some really good numbers this week as well. So far on the season, he has 5.7 fantasy points a game, he has 34.3 fantasy points and 1 touchdown on the season. Would not be surprised if he got 1 or 2 more this week, and he had a pretty good game. Next up on our list, we have Isaiah Davis, and I kind of iffy on him. Definitely a speculative ad for now. And the only reason I say that is he could take over as running back 1, with Breece Hall being a potential trade candidate coming up here with the trade deadline. And he could be on track to see more volume, even if Breece Hall does not get traded. So far on the season, he is averaging only 3 fantasy points a game. He has 20.7 fantasy points and no touchdowns. Definitely someone that, if you do add him, I would be a bit iffy on, but definitely gonna have to wait and see what the trade deadline is looking like, or even if Hall gets traded before then. Next, we have Xavier Legette. Now, he did have a 3-yard touchdown last week with in the game before Bryce Young got hurt, but after Andy Dalton came in, he was targeted 5 times in 1 quarter of play, and he caught 4 of those 5 passes for 60 yards. And with Young expected to miss this week, I think Xavier Legette could be the top target for Andy Dalton this week. So far on the season, Legette is averaging 8.6 fantasy points a game with 43.2 fantasy points and 2 touchdowns. But I wouldn't be too surprised if we see touchdowns go up by 1 or 2 this week, and he does have a pretty solid game in terms of fantasy. Next on our list, we have Troy Franklin. He is second on the team in targets, and even though he did get outscored last week by Marvin Mims, I still have a lot of faith in Troy Franklin. And they are facing a Cowboys defense who are very generous in terms of points scored by receivers. So don't be too surprised if Troy Franklin does have a pretty good game along with the other Broncos receivers. So far on the year, Troy Franklin does have 9.9 fantasy points a game, 69.2 fantasy points and 2 touchdowns. He's another player that I would expect to have a pretty good game this week. Next up, we have Orandre Gadsden II. And he's pretty interesting because so far he does have the most receiving yards by an NFL tight end within the first 5 career games since the Super Bowl era. Now, I am not expecting him to keep up this pace, but he is definitely someone I would look at picking up because the tight end position is, generally light on depth whenever you get outside of your top guys like George Kittle or even Travis Kelce from a few seasons ago. So it could be a bit of a rocky road, but if he keeps up this production, definitely someone to look at off of the waivers. So far, he is averaging about 11.4 fantasy points a game with 56.8 fantasy points and 1 touchdown. And our last player that we have this week is going to be Juwan Johnson. Now, he has put up a season-high receiving yards of 79 last week against the Bears. And I thought it was great to see him have early production last week with Taysom Hill and Foster Moreau both being active. And last week he did play 72% of snaps and was targeted 7 times. However, if that production does keep up, we could see him get more fantasy points, and he could be another add at tight end for fantasy. So far he is averaging 9.5 fantasy points a game with 66.5 fantasy points and 1 touchdown. And that there with Juwan Johnson, he is going to be our last player for this week. I would have had a video out yesterday, but I was just super busy in my personal life. So next week, I'm hoping to have a little bit of a longer video out with maybe 1 or 2 more players in there. So please be on the lookout for that. And hopefully you guys get these ads in before the games start later today. And if you do, hopefully they win you your games. This has been the Fantasy Breakdown. Great week.